Hey folks, Dr. Mike here for the Making Progress channel. Today's video is about the future of your psyche. Ooh, creepy. Anyway, not so creepy, but some parts sound pretty creepy. Let me get started here. Humans, all of us, were designed by evolution, by natural selection and a few other forces, almost completely for hunter-gatherer style ancestral lifestyles. That is, evolution typically goes at a certain pretty consistent pace when it's biological evolution. And we've spent something like 97+% of that time as a species in one quite similar mode of life, the hunter-gatherer lifestyle. And we've spent maybe a few percentage points, probably less, in even an agricultural society, which started like 5,000 to 10,000 years ago, and only in the last little bit have we had modern technological society. So that means we were evolved to deal with a completely different set of problems in many respects than the ones that are typically presented to us today. For example, we used to have to deal with predation. You probably don't deal with predation by lions and shit on your way to work daily. But that's what we were designed for a long time. The reason monsters are scary in movies is because they have a simulacra of predators. If you have a monster that's small and fluffy and has a normal-looking mouth without big teeth, you can call that thing a monster. It's not convincing because it doesn't look like the predators that we are literally pre-wired before birth. Well, some of the wiring happens after birth, to look at and go, holy shit, that's scary. But it's very out of touch emotion now because you just don't run into predators anymore. We're designed to pay lots of attention to and give lots of our mental resources to male-on-male sexual selection conflict. Like, where on the status hierarchy am I against that guy? Did he just disrespect me? Do I need to stand up for myself and show that I'm not to be fucked with? So on and so forth. This is something very, very important for getting the right kinds of mating strategies going in an ancestral environment, but nowadays just accounts probably for 90% of gang warfare and most street fights, and has essentially almost no upside. We were geared for a long time for tribal warfare. You evolve with people that are usually genetically related to you. There's a couple dozen of you at a time, maybe a couple hundred, and it's your small little area versus someone else's small little area. Tribe-on-tribe war is a human constant for millennia. We evolved to make that make sense to us. That is the reason why small-town football teams have such rabid fans against other local small-town football teams. It's that tribal us versus them mentality that in the modern world is a curiosity and a little bit of a nuisance more than it is remotely adaptive. Tribalism itself is a core human universal. We evolved for finding plant food. We evolved for hunting, and so on and so on. These are things we barely, if at all, do in the modern world. And if we evolved for that world, but we live in a very different modern world, you think like there are some priority mismatches. And in fact, that's the case. Here are just some of the things that humans used to rationally value. Not that they arrived to them through reason, but from an evolutionary lens, we can look at humans behaving this way in their ancestral environments and say, that's a good thing that they're doing this. That's what we evolved to do. Here are some of the priorities. For example, high-calorie food. You want humans in a semi-starved, permanent semi-starved natural environment to when they get high-calorie food to eat as much of it as possible, as quickly as possible, and gather the rest because high-calorie food doesn't come around very often and you need it to continue to grow and replicate and all that stuff. Another thing that we have as a near universal human character trait is the desire to take it as easy as possible in a variety of situations. First of all, when you're a calorically constrained environment, you can't just piss away tons of calories building cities and structures. Another thing is working towards the future in general admits a dependable future where what you have produced can be guarded and can produce value later. But if enough stealing goes on and enough moving the tribe around from one area to another goes on and enough predation goes on and enough you can't actually do sit down work on anything because you're spending all of your time or most of it socializing with peers like you think feels good because it's all the selective pressures of sexual competition and mating. You have food to collect, you have hunting to do. There's just not a lot of time left during the day in many cases in order to make some productive work happen. And whatever time you do have, usually you want to spend it in a chill, low-calorie state. And if you were to even make a lot of industrial products, there's kind of first of all, there's not much of an ability to make them. But second of all, there's not a stable enough, dependable enough environment on which to deploy them. So taking it as easy as possible, laziness is a human default. And interestingly enough, laziness has almost no value in today's modern society. Is anyone in the United States really, I mean, maybe a person here or there, are they really constrained in their ability to do work by how many calories they can eat? What? You can easily get 5,000 calories a day to almost everyone. Humans don't produce 5,000 calories worth of output. So it's a thing that in the modern world, laziness makes you fat and wastes opportunities for work because you could always just have tons of opportunities to work. You could wake up and if you weren't lazy at all, like internally, you could work from the time you woke up to the time you went to sleep, more or less, get some food in, you get some water, and then you're back to work. Humans were not designed in an environment in which productive, focused work was a good idea because there's not enough resources to put into that and not enough dependable output to pour out of that, not enough cultural insight to even learn how to do that. And so we're stuck in a very different world. And in our world today, laziness and taking it easy is not great. But in our ancestral world, it was both had something that you couldn't get away from and was probably a good idea in many cases because you didn't have the calories to support anything else. So either going and doing things that are really important to you in that ancestral context, or you're chilling the hell out. Current modern working world of going in your computer and doing this, it's actually neither one of those things, which is why sometimes people think that work, well, it's called work. You might not want to do it. You should want to do it, but you might not want to because your brain isn't designed for that kind of work. Here's another thing that's a priority back in the day: trusting your instincts and intuitions. No, they don't beat logic and reason, but logic and reason are informed by, first of all, knowing formal logic, or at least some informal logic, and also having a good data set on which to actually implement reasoning. But when the cultural information about how you should act is very low and given to you by people with very potentially different intentions, like your parents don't actually have your best interests in mind most times. Genetically, they have their best interests in mind for the one half of their DNA that lives inside you. Your parents' usually number one instinctual drive is to see you have grandchildren successfully. Anything as far as passions or goals or dreams you've had in life, that really doesn't enter their mind. Now, they may say, and some might actually believe that they value that, but low-key, they probably really don't. So when anyone you could learn from is going to try to bias you to some extent, in many cases, the amount of learning you can do is very low, then you have to act on the instincts and intuitions evolution is built inside of you. If someone looking at you all suspicious, you got to treat them a little bit suspiciously. It's not because someone told you to do it. It's an automatic reaction to their facial expression and body language that in evolution, people who didn't become wary of suspicious-looking people got kind of like, somebody got the drop on them, or sociopaths took advantage of them, and so on and so forth. They didn't have as much evolutionary success. But someone who was wary of someone who looked a little weird, they had more evolutionary success. Nowadays, you can just logic your way out of most of those problems, but instincts and intuitions are a big deal in ancestral time because the amount of otherwise information you get to act on was incredibly low compared to today. And that includes instincts to confront, to quarrel, to fight, to talk shit, to gossip, all that stuff. Those are all productive instincts in context back in the day, but nowadays they probably lead you astray more than they help you out. Another thing you wanted to do back in the day a lot was show off your wealth or your physique or your prowess in some other capacity in front of others. It's a part of sexual selection. That's how the hierarchy is sorted. Nowadays, it's kind of a gigantic fucking waste of time and a huge waste of your money. And there's lots of time spent on mating rituals and tons of time spent on sex and trying to get sex. This is a huge thing, but nowadays might look a little bit different to you if you're rationally approaching the question of what benefits you as a person and humanity in general today in the modern context. When we take the psyches that we evolved with for the times we evolved them for, and we mix in that we live in today's world, we can get some problems imposing our former values onto today's world and having a mismatch. For example, a lot of people have really high anxiety nowadays, mostly in the wealthy, developed parts of the world, mostly in the most wealthy and developed parts of the developed and wealthy world. And that's because life is so dependably amazing and stress-free on an objective level today that your anxiety gets really high because you're designed to interact with a world that is kind of always trying to kill you in some respect, and there's always life or death situations around every corner. You may not have been involved in a life or death situation ever in your life, or maybe a few times. The thing is, if you're constantly involved in life and death situations, it's an interesting way to live, but it gives you every bit of deep meaning and peace you could ever fucking want. But if you don't have that, and your brain's systems are like, something's up, something's bad. We were geared to detect a lot of bad because there used to be a lot of bad. Now your life is fucking all gravy. You just wake up, you eat your breakfast, you go to work, everyone's nice, you do your work, you come home, you eat a little bit of food, maybe you go to the gym, maybe you don't. You watch some TV. You could just have seamless life where nobody bothers you. You pay your bills on time, you get all the food you want, you get entertainment all the time. Your anxiety level might be at 1,000 because your mind is like, this is the good times, but I know the bad times are just around the corner. So I got to make you really fucking anxious so you see them coming. But if the bad times never come, you just always have really high anxiety. Another related thing is pessimism. Most humans are more pessimistic, as objectively measured by almost any test, than is rationally intended. And that problem is getting worse over time. Our world today, especially the modern world, is just categorically so much better in every measurable respect than it ever has been, that pessimism is now starting to look fucking stupid. Like, if you ask the average person on the street, what's life in America going to be like in 10 years? If they tell you anything other than probably a lot better than it is today, they're wrong. And they feel that they're right. Why do they feel that they're right? Pessimism makes sense when there's fucking saber-toothed tigers around every goddamn corner and you're barely struggling to put food in your mouth while trying to stick your you-know-what into something so that evolution doesn't clip your ass right off the fucking tree of life. That's real talk. That's how it really is in ancestral environments. So if you aren't pessimistic, you're just out of touch. And that's exactly what pessimists will tell you about today's world. Well, if you're not pessimistic, you're just not paying attention. No. You just have machinery that was designed for a much worse world. And now that you're looking at it, it's kind of like that reference in the Matrix. They lost entire crops of humans who rejected their perfect Matrix. That's not how it would work. That's neither here nor there. In a sense, that's kind of the modern world we live in today. We have this unbelievable abundance and people are like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Stuff's going to suck. Here's the thing. Objectively, the 60s were better than the 50s. The 70s were better than the 60s. The 80s were better than the 70s in almost every measurable respect, and so on. The 2020s are unprecedented, a decade of abundance. The 2030s are going to be straight up psychotic compared to today. People aren't catching on writ large. They have this reservation of pessimism. This pessimism sucks. It's a crappy way to live your life, but most people have a lot of pessimism in our modern world because it's too good for them to believe, and they don't believe it. So they have pessimism, which stinks. Another one is people have an inherent sense of powerlessness. You know, men, what is the term? I'm going to get this wrong, but like men plan and, God's act or whatever, or God's laugh, right? Men plan and God's laugh. The gods are always laughing at your plans because whatever meager little bullshit house you can construct, God sends a hurricane and to smite it away. The thing is, that feeling of powerlessness is very accurate in our ancestral world. I mean, it's you and 30 people you've known your whole life and a campfire and a few spears and a few little pieces of knowledge about where the fucking bison go. That's it. That's all you got. Man, you are powerless, bro. Holy crap. Storms coming in, a pack of lions shows up. Man, you are in some deep ish. Today, we're engineering things at a molecular level. Almost everything you can get sick with, you just go to the hospital and they're like, we just treat this, you're good. We are growing exponentially in the ability to alter the world around us. Our power is an all-time high, but a lot of people feel like we just can gain no traction. You say, hey, try these GMO foods. They're better for you and they're tastier and they're fresher and they don't hurt the environment as much. A lot of people are like, we're going to have to pay this back somehow. You can't have this. Because in our ancestral time, most things came with a very distinct, nasty trade-off. Nowadays, we could just have completely right answers to shit that are all hunky-dory. People don't believe it. They don't think we've earned this sort of situation. Now, we've literally earned it because we've accumulated wealth and the biggest wealth of all, knowledge, throughout our recent literate society over generations. So why do you have it so good? Because the people before you built the shit and taught you how to build it and taught all those builders how to do it even better. And now we go from better and we stand on the shoulders of giants to go even better, even better, and better, which is why progress is exponential. But humans also aren't designed to think exponentially because in our ancestral environment, everything happens quite linearly. The gazelle runs a certain speed. Gazelles don't like start out at 10 miles an hour and then ramp up to 1,000 miles a second and then ramp back down. That's not characteristic behavior. So people just aren't used to having a lot of leverage on things and are used to having a bit of reverence of like, oh, we got to pray to the animal gods before we catch this prey. That is a huge admission of powerlessness. And that powerlessness is sort of wildly out of place in many junctures today. Here's another one. People have a constant search for sex and romantic intimacy. The thing is, like, other than for the purpose of literally having children, sex and romance, it's fun, but it's kind of a giant waste of time based on our current survival priorities, because you could be doing a trillion other things like building space elevators and Dyson spheres around the sun, but you're out there trying to get that wet, that nasty, that ushy. You feel me? But that's just something that you're supposed to be doing back in the ancestral environment because, and I'm just going to say this plainly, almost all of your offspring will die either in the womb, during delivery, or in early childhood. Almost all. So you got to be skeeting up loads all the time with damn near anyone you can in order to get a few of your progeny past the finish line. Nowadays, the probability of survival of a given child once they're born is like 90-some%, 99 or some shit like that. You just don't need to be out there plowing it all the time for any remotely rational reason other than the fact that it feels good. But remember, it feels good because it was adaptive as shit back in the day. It is no longer. You don't look at a guy who is not married to anyone, but has like 9 children with 3 baby mamas, is like, man, my man is like really just doing life super well. No, that was a great strategy hundreds of years ago and for millions before that. But nowadays, it just makes you live in a really not so great way and no one really thinks you're cool because it's a different world. Another one. You want to be able to show off your wealth, show off anything you can so that other people see that you're amazing so that you get more sex with them, and that's how the cookie crumbles. Nowadays, it's very easy for people to figure out if you're wealthy or not. It can just occur in casual conversation, and the constant need to flex wealth is just kind of absurd. And so if you buy like a Rolls Royce, of which many of you know I have 18, that's $350,000 or whatever dollars to just scream at the top of your lungs that you're wealthy. But if you really, really want people to know that you're wealthy for the purpose of getting laid, you just go like an executive dating website, you show them your tax returns and the due diligence process, and they're like, dope, here's 10 women that went to MIT and are supermodels that want to date you. You don't have to buy a Rolls Royce. It's fucking pointless. Now, you say, but I like the Rolls Royce. I love that it's quality. I love driving it and other people see me. Aha, that's because you feel like it's a good thing because evolution designed you to be showy, where nowadays that could just be really, really straightforward. Another one is drama from status hierarchy confrontations. I look at my Instagram comments every now and again. People are calling me names. What do I want to do? I want to be like, well, call me that in real life, pussy. But the thing is, that's like an incel troll or some guy from, it's like a troll farm in China. It's not even a real human being. Because what am I going to do even if it's a real person? Am I going to fly to like Flagstaff, Arizona to beat somebody up at a gym? What an absurd thing. So every time my mind is thinking, oh, how could you? It's wrong. Because because my mind and your mind is designed to perceive things that occur socially as in your social environment. We did not evolve with high-speed global internet. So when someone on a comment section says, you suck, your physique looks like crap, it's your human nature tells you this is a person in front of me that's saying this. It's public too. He's saying it in front of other people and they're watching to see how I'm going to react. I ain't no bitch, you feel me? It's going to go down. That's all kinds of wrong. You should be saying is looking at it and be like, oh, gosh, that's irrelevant nonsense from the ether. That's the rational action, but you don't feel like that because you were not designed for today's environment. We have a different problem set. Some problems are the same. You still have to eat food, right? You still have to get shelter, etc. We have a very different problem set in today's world. For example, finances. If you are genetically somehow very financially concerned, you're almost never going to be poor a day in your life, or just not that long. Longevity. Humans just aren't built to last. And you used to be like unless you were one of the 5% of people that made it into old age, you died in your teens, 20s, and 30s in fucking hunting or combat or infections or a bunch of other things. And longevity was just not a priority. It's not a priority for our bodies biologically because after age 40-something, your body's like, whatever, I'm just going to pay no attention to any upkeep of any systems, and that's how aging happens. But if you put a lot of emphasis on longevity, today it makes perfect sense because you're like, well, how many years do I have left realistically if I don't die of old age? But for getting hit by a car or something, I don't know, till I'm 80? Holy crap, that changes your view on life a ton, and it means any investment you can make into living longer pays huge dividends of area under the curve of your whole life. That just didn't used to be the case. If you saw someone diligently investing into their longevity in tribal times, you'd be like, dude, the bison's just going to gore you tomorrow. Get in here, the campfire, dance around, have some fun with us. The longevity crap, are you out of your mind? Nobody lives that long. And you're going to be like, oh, actually, they're completely correct. Today, it's literally backwards. One of my favorite quotes is YOLO, you only live once, which people usually say to rationalize doing dumb shit, doing backflips off a bridge or some shit like that into water that's 150 feet down. But YOLO is true. And it also means because you only live once, you had better be fucking careful because you toast yourself, you ain't coming back. So you can actually see it from both perspectives, but people typically see it only from that forum perspective and not from that long-term perspective. Another one is getting along with others. If you have a hierarchical situation in your tribe and you're close to the top, it's not hugely important for you to be on super good terms with everyone beneath you because fuck them. That's why you got a spear and you're the big dude and you sleep in the compound with the other tribal elders and no one's sneaking into that because you have guards. So all the nether peoples, the lower peoples, you can just push them out of the way. It doesn't matter. But today in modern society, first of all, there's billions of us. And second of all, if we have warfare on a large scale, aka a person-to-person exploitation and crime, everything descends into fucking chaos. Our society is gone. And also, everyone has fundamentally equal civil rights. So if you brush someone off, literally push them away at a grocery store, the police come and tell you can't walk around society anymore and you have to go to jail. So the value of getting along with others is incredibly important nowadays, way more than it used to be back in the day. So here are some of the kinds of things that humans should rationally value much more than they do today if we're actually adapted to today's constraints and environment. One is calm, rational analysis. Back in the day, you didn't have enough information and time to actually do good rational analysis. Nowadays, you got tons of time and loads of information. So if a problem comes to you and you feel like responding emotionally, instinctually following your instincts, hey, listen, 10,000 years ago, it's probably, your best bet. Nowadays, it's almost certainly your worst bet. If someone is described as a person who's really calm and really rational, you can bet they have way more success on almost every metric than someone who isn't. It's just writ large a good thing now for our current environment. Another one is a deep concern for what problems have the biggest financial payoffs. There are a lot of people today that I happen to be sort of cursorily familiar with that are in their 40s and 50s, and they're financially quite a bit constrained because they just partied through their teens, 20s, 30s, and most of their 40s. And they haven't built any kind of wealth or any skill set by which to acquire wealth. It's kind of important in our modern society, or at least a cool priority to have that makes your life a lot better if you do it. They haven't done this. Why do they party? Partying is something ancestrally you want to do. It's a social gathering. It gives you all those pleasant emotions. Humans were partying since the beginning of time. You kill a big beast, roll his ass into the fire, light that motherfucker up. Everyone's dancing, everyone's eating, everyone's having a good time. Parties are the shit. That's where you do a lot of social hierarchy stuff. That's where you do a lot of mating ritual type of stuff. Parties is where that happens, in the village or in the tribe at the end of the day when the times are good. The thing is, now times are infinitely good, so you could just party all the time. So those people just partied all the time as their instincts told them to. But what they didn't do was have a deep concern for the kinds of problems that if they worked on had the biggest financial payoffs. Can you imagine someone's like, dude, my buddy's so cool. You're like, what's he like? He's like, he studied for his business degree ever since he was 16. He got into an MBA program. He just studies all day long. He never goes out, man. He's the fucking man. He's got his own company. It's worth $500 million. He's 23 years old. You're like, oh my God, what's he doing with his money? Like, he's investing it and he's pouring it back into the company. He just sits at home and types all day. Isn't Jim amazing? You're like, that guy sucks. What the hell? But he's the guy winning in today's modern society, quote unquote. We're all winning when we trade and exchange, but that's the guy that's Elon Musk. What the fuck do you guys think Elon Musk was doing? He was starting PayPal when the rest of you guys were partying, and so was I. That's why he's got a ton of money. It's not for any other really magical reasons other than the fact that he's brilliant and a few other things. If everyone was really focused on what kind of actions today give me the best financial payoff tomorrow, the day after, and years later, oh my God, let's say half of our problems are gone. Another one is the valuing of deep work, sitting in a quiet place, examining logical concepts, building and creating something that's going to help yourself and other people, business ideas, science, tech, engineering, working with very difficult clients in your psychology practice, real, true, deep work, that pays dividends like crazy. Almost all the billionaires of this world that earn their money in the marketplace, not like the Sultan of Brunei, who's just a despot, they did it through a crap load of deep work. Elon Musk, again, is like one of the poets of what deep work is supposed to look like. If you're not into deep work, you probably aren't creating a lot of value for yourself nearly as much as you could. But like, how many people are really, really into deep work? Not as many as you would like. And we don't have that much of an affinity to it because, again, you're deeply working on putting a couple sticks together, you get eaten by the tiger, or someone else gets laid with your girlfriend, and that's it. You're out of the evolutionary gene pool back in the ancestral times. Another thing is people should want to be interested in investing their finances into long-term instruments. People play the stock market when they're playing against hedge funds who have quants and tons of data science going against them. It's a losing battle. Quick money, quick fly-by-night schemes are dumb as shit. They fail almost all the time. Long-term financial investments that are low risk are really, really smart. But notice when I tell you that, a part of you is like, that's not sexy. That's not something it feels like I want to do it, precisely because your feelings were designed for another time altogether. Here's another one. These, by the way, are progressively more and more lame, illustrating how out of time we really are, out of our timeline we really are. Maintaining a low risk of death and injury lifestyle. If someone's like, hey, do you want to go to Vail to go skiing? The objectively correct answer is no. Because skiing toasts a shitload of people. Should I have done a crap load of anabolic steroids like I did? No. Why did I do them? For fucking alpha vibes. Because my mind wants to see me look like a gorilla. That's back in the old day. I don't need to look like a gorilla. It was always a bad idea. But I felt compelled to do it because, instincts. But nowadays, that's really dumb. We should all be very risk averse because there's no ski trip fun enough to kill you. Never worth it. I promise. Another one, this is a big one. We want to be really clued in, ideally, to altering the world around us to increase our survival probability. Your ability to do that in ancestral times is so low. You could kill something, you could pick up a rock or two, you could burn down a section of forest or something, but that was kind of about it. We can re-engineer. Look at our modern society. You can drive down the street. You're driving down a seamless vehicle transportation network that spans thousands of miles. You look up and you see power lines. Those are feeding the fuel of society across the entire fucking country. Holy shit. Someone had the idea to really make a difference and start building. If all of us had that instinct to build and create, to modify our world to keep us safe and prosperous, oh my God, we'd be living in fucking mega utopia by now. But not all of us are living in a place like that because those instincts to not do that are much more powerful than the ones to do it. Taking care of the environment. But by the way, should not be a concern unless you think shitting in your own fish tank is a good idea. We should be looking to engineer the climate. Every time a hurricane rolls in, we just take it on the teeth, and we're getting better about building structures that are resistant to hurricanes, insurance and all that stuff. But fundamentally, can't we rig the Earth's environment and climate not to try to kill us all the time? Do you guys want another ice age? I sure as shit don't. Can't we theoretically alter the climate to be what we want? Absolutely. Do we have the know-how to do it now? No. Will AI give us that know-how? Yes, almost certainly. Should we be really interested in doing that? Yes. But if you tell someone we really should just be climate engineering, you'll get a recoil from a lot of people. They'll be like, what? No, you don't want to do that. We just don't know what we're getting into. Well, that's how we used to feel back when we had thought that storms were just gods smiting us. Nowadays, we're catching the drift a little bit. We should want to control everything around us to reduce the probability of bad things happening to us. To that end, the expansion of that logically is that we want to secure the survival of society on a solar system level, which means what? We need robust black hole detection so that we can at least see our impending death coming and maybe do something about it. We don't have that now, by the way. We should have Earth defense systems, missiles and lasers pointed to the sky so that asteroids can't kill us. We basically don't have that. That's a big problem. We should be actively working, and this is some people that think a little further ahead than others, Elon Musk, for example, we should be trying to proliferate into other solar system moons and planets, colonize Mars, colonize Titan, etc., etc. That's a very good thing. If the Earth happens to get toasted, hey, shit, we're still around somewhere. Survival in some ways better than complete and total death for everyone. We should probably be working on a bunch of technologies that don't rely on the sun to give us energy, because just one sun goes away and everything's gone. We should have the ability to create energy and food and everything else that has nothing to do with the sun whatsoever. That's a big de-risking. And that's one of these problems with you guys. I'm not that smart. I can see this as a fucking existential major problem. And most people will tell you that if you think about that, you're just a dreamer, insane person. You should really think about things like art and life and dance, which are all just simulacra of shit we used to like back in the day. Again, our instincts are totally out of place in many cases. And of course, at the end of this, maybe travel to outside the solar system. And a black hole is going to swallow the whole goddamn solar system up. Or if it hits the sun, it's going to spin all the other planets completely the fuck off or into it. Maybe if we took AI, uploaded it, our code of life into AI and had it go out into the universe and spread itself, we would de-risk the survival of life. For all we know, we're the only living things in the universe. We have no good evidence to the contrary yet. Shouldn't we be trying to make sure that we're Gucci? You could see an animal, like its own little island, or hurricanes coming. You're like, hey, do you want to get off that island and just three of you on that island? Do you want one person to go on another island? Because the hurricane's going to drown you guys. They're like, nah, we're good. And then you see the hurricane drown them and you're like, those animals are dumb. That's us on Earth right now. And people are debating the Middle East politics and China and Russia. And have we gotten too wealthy and out of touch? Insanity that is using our base instincts for tribal warfare. There's the whole Middle East explained for you. Alpha status and despots versus the rest of us, China, Russia, etc. And all that crap, just absolutely the wrong instincts applied to modern problems most of us have no instinctual way to catalog and contextualize. Now, you can use mindfulness of these instincts and education of what to do better to tilt your behaviors and preferences on the margins to become more adapted to modernity rather than antiquity or ancestry. It's a lot of the advice I've been giving you guys on this channel anyway and will into the future, like think shit through, don't act on your emotions, shit like that. The best way to go about this is notice the ancestral drives and feelings come up. Don't do anything about them. Understand that they are out of place. Let them pass. Choose the logical action instead. Act logically, and then continue to iterate on that. And there you go. You're doing life properly. Now, this can work much better than just following your instincts, but is unfortunately very limited. So here's why mindfulness and education can only go so far, and it's because they're very marginal. Our instinctual natures are super, super powerful. I mean, your instincts are designed to keep you alive in a state of nature in which you're almost completely bereft of any information about what the hell is going on, but for what your instincts tell you. Like if you hear something in the bushes going, your instincts tell you to get the fuck away from the bushes. If you didn't have any instincts, you're like, oh, I'm a scientist. I'm curious. What's in the bushes? Oh, my hand is missing. Oh, my arm is missing. Oh, I'm dead. That doesn't work out too well. There's a reason your instinctual natures are super powerful. They've been keeping you alive, but not much longer. If you have these instincts, which are totally out of place because you typically don't encounter walking to your workplace in New York City and Manhattan, you don't encounter things growling in the bushes anymore, you end up wasting a lot of time and energy fighting your instincts where you could just be productive instead. How many times as a kid or as a teenager did you have to fight your instinct to want to go party because you have to do your homework? Who the hell likes to sit down and do homework when they're 16? You want to go party, you want to get into fights, you want to get the girls, you want to do this and that. That's all instincts. And if you're really mindful, you still get the temptations to do all that stupid crap. It's fun crap because you're instinctually wired for it. And you have to reel yourself back in. That's tough. Let me give you some examples of how it can be tough to fight your instincts all the time. Dyslexia. Not an instinct, but makes the point. It makes life really hard. It does harden you up because it teaches you how to innovate around it. But wouldn't it be great if you were just not dyslexic to begin with? And I know dyslexia seems like a weird thing, but dyslexia is not so maladaptive in an ancestral long view because dyslexia was a literal non-issue up until we invented reading and writing thousands of years ago, which in the evolutionary time is a drop in the bucket, but really for most people, hundreds of years ago, and for most of the world as a percentage, dozens of years ago is when literacy, before 1900, most people were illiterate around the world. There's still large groups of people that are illiterate. Only the last 100 years has literacy been a thing. So if you were naturally dyslexic, in any time other than the last 100 years, it just didn't matter. You weren't even going to know that that was the case. That was being colorblind to the color green when there was literally no green anywhere in your environment. Who cares? But now it's this big deal. So that is only a problem that presents itself today. I kind of wish it wasn't a problem. Here's another one. Sex drive. This isn't considered a disorder, but in a technical sense, it kind of is nowadays for most people. Sex is fun and all, but it's annoying and steals tons of time away from modern problem solving. How many of you guys would want to just work on making your life awesome, but you got to J the D every now and again? Or you want to get some sleep, but that one girl's texting you and you know she's down. And you're like, man, I want to hit it. Do you need to reproduce with Stacy to make children? No, Stacy's not the person you reproduce with. But she's knocking on your door at 2 a.m. You're not going to tell her to go to hell. Stacy's fine as shit. You're going to open that door and you're going to bang it out. And you're going to ruin a night of good sleep and you're not going to be as good at work tomorrow. Now, if I describe this to you, you'd be like, what are you, nuts, Stacy? You're like, you did it last night? Like, oh yeah, all night live is amazing. And you're like, you're the man. Like, no, false. I'm not the man. There is no child coming from this. Reproduction is only and exclusively, logically, to create children. There is no other real need to do it other than the fact that it feels good. And it feels good because our evolutionary ancestral environment engineered us to like it because it made children. So it's just straight up annoying if you have lots of opportunities to have sexual interactions with people. Guess what famous people do when they get famous, unless they're married or some shit like me. So I don't do this. But I have a lot of friends that are doing real well on social media. Bro, they got fucking 80 DMs with 80 girls all the time. They spend hours a day doing that. because it's amazing and fun. It's also insanely distracting and a humongous literal waste of your time. You could be building things instead. Now, wouldn't it be great if you could modulate your sex drive at will? If you have some free time and you want to go back in the past, crank it up to 11, have Stacy come over. But if you have work to do, wouldn't it be amazing if you could turn dial your brain so you just wouldn't think of sex at all? So you could have 8 hours of just total deep work on your computer and never have to worry about, oh man, I could sure use some Stacy right now. That would be awesome. You could say, dude, are you nuts? Are you trying to say that we can somehow get rid of our base sex drive? Isn't that so ancestrally deeply woven into all sexually reproducing animals that it's possible to fight? In regular humans, yes. But what if we could be different? I'll get to that in a moment. Lastly, an example of junk food. This is big. Yeah, exercise and diet and shit is really cool, and you can control your weight like that, but wouldn't it be cool if you could just eat whatever you wanted and needed and not have to fight yourself all the time? What if humans naturally went to the store, instinctually looked for lean meats, veggies, fruits, whole grains, and healthy fats? That would be unbelievable. People say, oh, junk food companies advertise to you. They don't give a shit what they advertise to you about. It's because you like junk food and they figure that out. They're like, oh, this is what you want. Here's more. If all of a sudden everyone woke up tomorrow loving broccoli, the broccoli syndicates would just get totally out of control and mega powerful, which would be great because broccoli would be ubiquitous and almost free. But it's not, because most people don't like broccoli. So it's actually a little bit of a luxury good in some sense because almost no one wants it. Wouldn't it be sweet if we actually wanted the things that were good for us instead of having to fight ourselves all the time? This is where pharma and genomics, I very much believe, have a high probability of very soon coming to the rescue, and they've already started. Through pharmaceuticals, we will be able to control our primal drives a lot in the future. A bit at first, but over the next 10 to 15 years, I think substantially. An example is modern anorectic drugs. You may have heard of them as the GLPs. Ozempic, tirzepatide, shit like that. You can now take drugs that make your desires for junk food and excessive caloric eating as low functionally as you would like. What? So people that used to have to try to focus on their work and not think about food and then really just be super, super hungry and super annoyed and eat a bunch of junk food and feel like crap and their health is deteriorating, gets in the way of work. Now those people can take Ozempic and actually have entire work days where they don't think about food when they go to the store because they're not craving anything, but they're literally hungry and kind of almost passing out from lack of energy. They could be like, okay, what do humans need to eat? I looked it up. I got educated on nutrition on ChatGPT. I'm going to buy lean meats. I'm going to buy veggies, fruits, whole grains. And then they're healthy. They're eating all the food they need and they don't have to worry about Cheetos because Cheetos don't look appealing anymore. That's literally what modern anorectic drugs are starting to give to people. And I think that's a wonderful thing, but just the tip of the iceberg on what we could be doing eventually. Through genetic engineering, especially, some through pharmacology, but especially through genetic engineering eventually, maybe in 15 to 20 years, maybe I'm pessimistic, maybe optimistic, we have the ability, will have the ability to really literally rewrite our drives, our fundamental drives. We can align our natures way better to our current environments and realign them away from the ancestral environments they were designed for. Because remember, back to nature, because some people would be like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, we got to make a return to nature. You don't want to go back to nature. Nature blows. The modern world is objectively superior. If you don't agree, no, you do agree, because you're holding your phone, which is networked to the rest of the world, by the way, and has technologies in it you don't understand, and you're getting streaming internet and my voice in your fucking face. If you really think back to nature is good, I don't have to tell you this, because you don't listen to what I say, because you're out on a permanent camping trip somewhere, probably getting killed by bears right around now. Everyone who tells you back to nature is better is lying to you, unless they are full of beard, covered in dirt, and telling you this in Alaska in the middle of the fucking wilderness. And then you can be like, wow, they really do mean it. Not only can we do this, there are some examples of what we could do. And here they are. This is going to sound totally crazy until you think about it a little bit, and then it might sound like it makes a little bit more sense. We can have the potential to give ourselves an on-off switch or a turn dial for sex drive so that you can stop making terrible decisions. Like, you got to study for an exam. Stacy sends you a text of her butthole or whatever. You could be like, oh, turn dial. And you look at it, you're like, that's interesting topography. Hey, Stacy, I'm studying. I'll see you later. You're great. Bye. Versus if you don't turn it down, you look at it and you're like, yeah, the exam's important, but Stacy can get it. Come over now. LOL. Winky face. Next, you can completely control your hunger and your cravings. We don't have to have junk food cravings anymore. And because junk food cravings are almost the entire cause of obesity, we don't have to have obesity anymore. Obesity just occurs because most of us want to eat tasty foods and we don't have a fill point, because in evolution, we didn't have a realistic opportunity to get to a fill point. But if you can just engineer us to just want just enough food to keep the machine going and no more, you don't have to worry about fighting cravings or anything like that. Here's another one. Humans all have somewhat of an instinctual preference and interest in violence and criminality. You can engineer that out. If you engineer out humans' proclivity for violence, you can get almost no crime to occur. I'm going to make this a really quick point for you in case seems a bit odd. We already know we have types of humans that almost never commit violent acts, and they're called females. Females have like a 97-3 or 3-97 probability of going to jail for violent crime versus males. So whatever it is, males, testosterone, brain design that makes us really prone to some fucking violence every now and again, if we could just get rid of that and even just replace it with the female default, we've basically solved almost all violent crime right there and then. Another thing you can do is completely control attention span. There's no reason to think we can't genetically engineer a Buddhist monk level of attention span for everyone. That's such a big deal. Everyone becomes better at everything, especially their work. That's awesome. Here's another, even deeper point. It's not just abilities. It's actual psychology and preferences. People of various genetic proclivities or various genetic designs can be more or less open-minded and positive. Just happy and open-minded people, the biggest fraction of why some people are happy, open-minded, and some are not is straight up genetics. If you know what genes control that, and like AI will take care of that problem here in a few years, and you can actually do good genetic engineering, you can take everyone and make them really happy and open-minded all the time instead of pessimistic and disagreeable, which many people are. And remember, being disagreeable means you're not going to get taken advantage of by sociopaths and people in the social hierarchy back in the day. And being pessimistic just means you're realistic back in the day. If we engineer that out, not only are people hyper-social and cooperative now, everyone's having a good time in their head now and everyone's ultra-productive. It's rationally the thing to be now, but we can't be it. Another one is to be able to relax when work is over. Humans, when they get that fight or flight response from doing a ton of challenging things, it takes a while, hours, days, sometimes weeks of taking a vacation in order to bring your stress response down. If you just had a switch where you flip from work mode to chill mode, and you could just do that seamlessly, some people are better at it than others. It is a tractable problem for genetic engineering. We could just have people either really focused at work or just relaxing and partying their faces off afterwards, not having this weird transition point. Now, lastly, and mostly, it's the opposite of least, we would be able to control our intelligence levels. At the very least, you could get humans up to the high human standard, which is like, everyone's about as smart as Elon Musk or Einstein or Jeff Bezos or, AI researchers, some shit like that. If you ever look at the correlates of almost all life behaviors, scale to IQ, if you raise everyone's IQ to like 160 plus, crime almost completely disappears. Homelessness almost completely disappears. Exploitative, thoughtless, short-sighted acts almost completely disappear. Everyone turns into like Star Trek type people. That is a huge leverage point, and we can transform society massively from there on in. That's such a big deal. I always joke that almost all of the world's problems emanate from the fact that most people just could be smarter. That's really it. Like, here's a quick example. Vladimir Putin had an opportunity to do things that in the context of political economy are considered just not up for debate anymore. He took control of Russia. He had full power. He could have smashed corruption out over the course of 10 years, just killed everyone who was ever remotely corrupt, thrown the rest in jail. You just wouldn't have corruption anymore. You actually can decorrupt a country in about a generation if you just make people understand that corruption is just going to get you killed or thrown in jail. People just stop being corrupt. People are fundamentally self-interested. He could have, based on reading like 2 economics books, just liberalized the economy, become a part of Europe, traded like crazy. Russia would have been as wealthy, if not wealthier, than all the other countries of the world combined at this point. But he didn't do that because he's too fucking egotistical and just not smart enough. If he was just smarter, and if he was more calm and rational, we can genetically engineer these things. You just wouldn't have a guy who just toasted a whole country after it briefly recovered from its also toasting during the Soviet days, which is also because people just aren't smart enough to understand how economics works and not rational and calm enough to accept that the way they've been doing it is the wrong way. Now, last part of this discussion. It's going to take a little while, this last part. It is my preemptive arguments, trying to see the perspectives and deal with arguments that people will have against these sorts of propositions, that we should be engineering pharmacology to make ourselves more adapted to our modern world. We should be looking to genetic engineering. Genetic engineering especially throws people off. But don't worry, I've thought through a few of these things. You can put a few more of them in the comments if you think I haven't addressed these or other things properly. Here we go. People say things like, and this is common stuff, I hear about it because I blab about this kind of shit to everyone who will listen at all times. Won't this whole genetically engineering society thing give the rich who get first access a crazy advantage over everyone else? Yes, but name me a thing the rich don't have a first mover advantage on anywhere. How is that different from the rest of it? There's nothing you have access to that rich people don't get first. Nothing. I don't know of a single thing that rich people didn't get earlier than everyone else. Look at our world today, growing and booming, and even poor people order Uber and they order fucking food to their house in Amazon. And you tell me, have rich people getting shit early really been that cataclysmic of a problem? And is it somehow different of a problem than this? It's not, I can assure you. It's like asking, well, if you buy a new car, won't the sun shine down on it? What the hell? The sun doesn't shine down on. The sun shines down on everything. So saying, won't the rich get access first, is not a unique problem to the genetic situation. Secondly, rich people pay for development and testing of almost every technology that we use when it's the least well vetted and most sucky. Rich people want to be the first to get some shit. I inherited my first iPhone from a very wealthy and awesome client I had as a personal trainer in New York City because he was getting the new version. His now was old. It was like 2 years old. And he was like, do you want this? I just don't need it. I was like, oh my God, an iPhone. It was my first iPhone. And I was like, oh, I could have not afforded it myself at that point, but I got it. And I was like, whoa, this is so cool. But what did he do? He dealt with an iPhone for 2 years that compared to the next iPhone sucked. Thank God that, I'm kidding. I was very kidding. This guy would know I'm joking. Thank God that idiot spent $1,000 on a stupid fucking phone so that every one of us gets that phone later, better and cheaper. Let the rich people have these genomic upgrades first. Hey, they'll get even richer, which they do anyway. But then when you get your shit later, yours will be super ironed out, work way better, and get you up to their standard ASAP because they always try the stuff first. That's what luxury goods are, by the way. Everything starts at luxury and floats down. Good. Let the rich people try the shit when it's not even at its best yet and has a chance of kind of screwing them up a little bit. Lastly, pills and genomic vectors are going to float down really quick to everyone else. Was there a drastic rich versus poor problem in COVID vaccine case? Nothing that didn't smash out for after a year. After about a year of the COVID vaccine being mass produced in various places, kind of everyone was getting vaccinated. It didn't matter who you were yet. First, it started with, people in Western countries, but it eventually went to everyone else. So when poor people are getting genomic upgrades to make themselves radically more intelligent a year later than richer people, is that somehow a problem? And it might be a problem if you think if you assume to be true the exploitation theory of value, which means that when someone gets rich, it's the expense of poor people. But the way it works in modern free economies is when someone gets rich, it actually benefits everyone else versus if they didn't get rich at all. Imagine Jeff Bezos wasn't allowed to become a billionaire. How the hell am I going to get protein powder delivered to my shit at 7 in the morning tomorrow from a warehousing system that would baffle you if you could understand how complex it is? We want people to get rich, and we want them to get rich before us so we can climb the rope after them. Just the same way with genomic editing, let them have it. And then a year later, we'll have the refined version, and then everyone will have it. Guys, cell phones are some of the most complex things ever made. Do poor people not have cell phones? Oh, wait, they do, nearly universally. This is a non-issue. Next problem here, next complaint. Won't won't like the government or whatever, society, make everyone get the upgrades? It's a funny side note that some people say not only will the upgrades hit the rich first, and that's bad, but then they'll make everyone do it, and that's bad. But hold on a sec. If the upgrades are bad, isn't it good that the stupid, selfish, greedy rich people are getting them and screwing themselves over? A lot of literally the same people say both of these are wrong, which is just a lot of file under having feelings versus having rational thoughts. Here's the thing. In liberal democracies, almost certainly not. There was no vaccine mandate, as far as I can tell, in the United States. Some agencies, some workforces, some corporations said if you don't get the vaccine, you don't get to come to work. That just means people don't want to hang out with you because you can get them sick. That's not a mandate. A mandate's like North Korea, where if you don't get the vaccine, they just shoot you and they go to the next person. It's either the jab or the shot. That's a real mandate. As far as I can tell, liberal democracies mostly, if not wholly, didn't have that. But also, vaccine is a thing that has a systemic contribution. If you're not vaccinated, you can give the disease even to some people who might have been vaccinated because it's our relative. If they're old, they croak, then it's kind of your fault. With upgrades genetically, I mean, look, you want them, great, and you don't want them, no big deal. There's not much of an impetus to force people to take them. That being said, liberty is a two-way street. People seem to forget that. For example, if there is a genomic upgrade which makes you highly unlikely to commit violence, and you don't take it, I don't want to have to be around you. So if I know there's a community of people who are notoriously not taking the jab or whatever for making themselves nonviolent, I'm not going to live there. And they're probably going to have themselves a nice shitty place to live that's going to be really violent because it's just all violent people now because everyone else who got the genomic upgrade to not be violent anymore, like, I don't want to live around these people. That already happens in our modern world. It would happen 10x in this situation. And those people that didn't get the upgrade are not entitled in the least to being around people that did. They're not entitled to be around anyone. That's just how freedom works. And if you don't get the attention span and intelligence upgrades that are now readily available, I don't have to hire you because people will be like, what about like Gattaca? And like, you know, people won't be hired because they don't have the genetic upgrades. Good. What the hell am I going to hire you for, you dummy? You want to work for my corporation in which everyone has an IQ of 170 or higher? What you going to do for us, big homie? Oh, you got a natural IQ of 100. Dope. Maybe you gotta like file some papers or something. JK, we have robots that do that now. Where do you bring into the equation creativity wise? We pay our average employee at this mega company gets $10 million a day. Why? Because they're smart enough to produce that much value. You are not ever entitled to work of any kind. Work is what you offer other people that agree to accept it because they think you're sufficiently valuable where it makes sense for them to pay you money so they get the value back. If you don't want to get an attention span genomic upgrade and you don't want to get the intelligence upgrade, you may find yourself insufficiently valuable to get the kind of job you want. Now, you still have your value. You can still do the kind of work that you've been doing. And if people are still paying you money, which they probably will, for the kind of work that you're doing, you're good to go. Maybe your current attention span and intelligence tops out at you can produce about $80,000 worth of wealth per year. Well, guess what? That's where your salary tops out. Ain't nobody rational going to pay you more than that because you literally don't produce that much. What are they, a charity? That doesn't make any sense. So if you want more money and you want nice things, you might have to jack your shit up with a genomic upgrade. If you don't, well, then that's cool, man. We're not hiring currently. But if you come back 10 times smarter, we'll talk. It's that simple. Freedom's a two-way street. Next, people say, well, don't we need disagreeable people? Why would we want people who are all super agreeable? We need people who disagree logically and respectfully because they move the conversation forward. We don't have to engineer that out. That's crazy to engineer out. That's some kind of weird communist nonsense. But we probably want to engineer out in most people, again, in my pseudo-libertarian philosophy, willingly on their part only, we would want to engineer out that reflexive confrontational disagreeableness. When people are like, well, I'm not doing it. And you're like, why not, Bob? And I'm like, well, I just don't like it. Okay, this is crazy. Why is Bob on the committee? That kind of shit. We can definitely engineer that out, and we don't have to have this problem where everyone's a yes man and we have a ton of groupthink. That's not the kind of disagreeableness we're talking about. Another problem, people say, well, we shouldn't be playing God. If you actually think that, stop eating all farmed food, stop living in a house, and stop taking medicine to be morally consistent. As soon as we derived medicines against pain and infection from our natural world and modified them heavily and engineered some of them outright, we began to play God. If you happen to not believe in God, you can just skip this one. If you do believe in God, why has God put all these opportunities and bounties in front of us for us to do what? To say no? And you could say, well, yeah, to say no, to live life as God intended. Well, God, if you typically subscribe to an Abrahamic religion like Judaism, Christianity, or Islam, he intended for you to live like as a goat herder, probably, or maybe a carpenter, maybe even that's New Testament. And then so if that's what you want to live like, I'll see you on a commune in the middle of Idaho. If you're in a fucking grocery store with air conditioning, God didn't talk about that at all, and you're making the same kind of contradiction because you're like, well, no, I'm not modifying my DNA. Like, what's different about that and sleeping in an air-conditioned room? Fundamentally, at a philosophical level, I see no difference there. I could really index on the positive side and say we should be playing God, but I'll keep this nice and gentle for now. People will also say, and I think understandably so, we could go very wrong with genetic engineering. And I hear that, definitely. We already have a very well-vetted, too well-vetted testing and authorization process that kills millions of people all the time because the FDA won't approve drugs it should approve tomorrow until 5 years from now. But don't you worry. All the genomic and pharma upgrades will have to go through so many lines of regulatory approval. You'll just get them too little too late in many cases. And when they do come, they'll be 99.9% chance of being safe. However, people make a really, really interesting conceit when they say, well, this could be a big downside with genetic engineering. Check this out. We're already in a downside. Go to a community of lower socioeconomic standing people. Go to the trailer park. Go to the hood. Are we living good, bro? Does this look to you like we're doing well? Go to India. Go to parts of Africa. Go to parts of Southeast Asia that haven't seen economic freedom. Look around. Look at the pollution. Look at the way people are acting to one another. Look at there's literally currently in Africa 20 million people in actual literal slavery. So when we try to use genetic engineering to make all of us better, you're telling me, well, you don't want to muck it up? Muck what up? Have you seen the what that we are as humans? We got a lot of good stuff going for us. We got a lot of bad stuff going for us. There's a lot more upside than downside. Really. And with good regulatory framework, which we already have more than enough of, it's probably going to be pretty much all upsides. You could say the same thing. Someone gets a cell phone out in the 90s. You're like, whoa, you're putting it that close to your head? Yeah, it turns out that's safe. And it turns out cell phones make us way better at everything. It was always the right answer. So yes, we should be cautious. But we can't assume that the base level at which we exist is already paradisical. We do not exist in paradise. We exist just above the fucking rot and swirl of daily hand-to-mouth how animals live. By the way, almost all animals are daily struggling for survival and literally homeless. We're barely above that. If we can engineer ourselves to be smarter, calmer, rational, etc., we're going to lift exponentially out of that real goddamn fast. You don't want to be in here. Status quo bias is dope and all when you got a real good status quo. When your status quo is the nation of Somalia, engineering out of that, probably a good thing, just to give something to you to think about. Next, this is a common one, interestingly, is people say, well, won't we turn ourselves into mindless, saccharine corporate drones? Well, Why the hell would we do that? We have carte blanche. It's the way it's probably going to work is 23andMe is going to be like, hey, here's the cool shit that we've made for you to upgrade yourself this month. Click on the shit online and which ones you want to accept. We'll send you something in the mail. It's a pill. You take it. 24 hours later, it's in your DNA. 2 months later, you change into whatever the hell you want it to be. Smarter, faster, stronger, leaner, etc. Like you can say yes to things and no to things. Who the hell accepts a mindless corporate drone? Now you say, okay, they snuck it into the water supply. Why would people want to make other people mindless? Generally, I think this stems from like just old anti-authority, anti-corporate hippies just having a conniption. It's like a lot of feelings from someone that came up in 1968. We can become more mindful, not mindless, more skeptical, more engaging, more brilliant. And all of us can be more like that. And now we're workers that make life better, and we can even have the capacity to enjoy it more rather than being anxious all the goddamn time or waiting for the saber-toothed tiger around every corner. Yeah, we have a much higher probability of designing ourselves to be better than to be worse. And everyone knows worse when they see it. You see people that are like walking around like, oh, must help the corporation. You're like, what update did they get? Like, oh yeah, they're with that other company, not 23andMe. Do you want that upgrade? You're like, no, that's a downgrade. It's not rocket science, folks. There are distinct ways to make ourselves better. This whole corporate mindless drone thing, that's just like Hollywood nonsense from hippies that Hollywood's mostly run by old hippies at this point. Next, what if despotic governments engineer their citizens against their will to maybe become mindless, never question authority? That can be done. It would be terrible. But it's not as bad as nuclear war, and that's already possible. So it's not a crazy new bad outcome on some kind of other level. People are always talking about like Brave New World and shit. Oh, this guy hasn't read Brave New World. Yeah, that's nice. Nuclear war is scarier than that, and we already deal with that shit. So it's not some kind of exotically crazy thing. But what are the probabilities that despotic governments misuse genetic engineering, if able to? High. That's another reason why we need to get to going to ending all despotic governments, as I've said a few times on this channel before, kind of as soon as is reasonable and won't cause World War III. Here's the thing. If you upgrade most of the world's peoples to a much higher level of intelligence and critical thinking, despotic governments are on borrowed time anyway. If you could somehow get all of the North Korean people to have IQs of 160 plus and get access to the internet for a day, they would all turn in unison to Kim Jong-un and probably rip his skin off his body, hopefully. But it's just, you can't oppress very intelligent, hardworking people for too long. Most people who are above a certain intelligence understand that dictatorship and despotism are just nonsense, stupid, wrong answers to life's questions. So it's nothing, there's not, people say, what if you have hyper brilliant people and they're all despotic? That generally tends not to happen, because when you become hyper brilliant, you realize like, cooperation's better than conflict. Exploitation's a bad way to get things done. What the hell am I doing here? The smartest people in the world know that free economies and free societies in general are just better at everything. And so like they have a high probability of being like, yeah, Sam Altman doesn't want to imprison us all. He knows that when we're all free, we produce much more value and have a better time for even him selfishly than if he just oppressed us. You're like, Kim Jong-un runs North Korea and he's the man there, but his country sucks and it's dying and it's a global embarrassment. It's a matter of intelligence in many cases just to know that you've zigged in the wrong track. That's all the main stuff for today. Now here's the deal. Are there problems to overcome in this space before we just start taking pills and getting injections to make ourselves better? Absolutely. Especially in how to implement these things with minimal downsides. But the upsides are nothing short of transformative. Because very, very many of our modern problems are the result of the fact that we're just much better adapted to the ancestral world than the modern world. You can see this, you can feel it. Why do people really like the Avatar movies so much? Because them motherfuckers living like we used to, man, all in touch with nature and shit, small tribal groups, everything makes sense. That's why small town America likes small town America. Little community, it's Jim, he owns a store. That's Stacy, different Stacy. That's Ethel, she owns the gas station. And I know everyone here and they're my people. A big old city and confusing global politics. I hate all that crap. That's just our ancestral limitations presenting themselves. we can change these if we want for immense benefits. And that's the future of the human psyche, is changing even our desires and proclivities and value systems through education, through mindfulness, through pharmacology, and through eventually genetic engineering to just become better. Better at what? To paraphrase the Wrath of Khan shit from Star Trek, they made me better. Better at what? At everything. And that's absolutely possible. Give it some thought, folks. Crazy futurism is fun. Next time, we'll probably talk about more human shit to help you in your daily life. Anyway, love you, mean it. See you next time.